What is up, guys? I'm the Senator, and last week Ubisoft released a Rainbow Six Siege status report where they were able to address some of the issues with the game, and they talk about why some of these issues exist and why it's difficult to deal with these issues. And they discussed what they're actively doing to address these issues. Man, I said the word issues a lot. But anyways, I love that Ubisoft is doing this, and hopefully this becomes a common thing where every few weeks they let us know what's going on and what they're testing and what they're doing to fix some of the major problems that are in Rainbow Six Siege. And while we all have mixed feelings towards Ubisoft and how they've handled the game in the last year, I think that we can all agree that it's great to see some transparency and that they're trying their best to let us know what is going on. This may be old news to some of you considering this came out last week, but this is certainly news to me. I'm just now seeing it. I just saw it like an hour before I sat down and wrote the script, but I'm going to be going over the problems they addressed in the status report and sort of give you my opinion on it. Down below, I'll put the timestamps if you want to skip to a particular topic. I'll also link the status report if you want to look at it because I may skim over some parts. But anyways, let's get right into it. So first off, let's look at sound concerns, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the concerns that they list, and I'm going to try to summarize the rest of it and give you my opinion. So they state that we are aware that various sound issues in the game have been problematic for players for some time. Sound in Siege is a very complex system which attempts to realistically simulate sound propagation in a 3D environment. In some cases, the complexity of the sound system can be confusing, which leads players to have misunderstandings. For example, when a sound uses a specific route to each player, but the player is not aware of that route, like in the case of a Maverick hold. In other cases, the complexity can also mean it can be difficult to diagnose sound bugs, such as frequently mentioned inversed audio or missing sounds. Okay, so this is something that I am super happy about that the devs are finally addressing. Sound in Siege has been a problem for a very long time, and there's some times when you can't tell if someone is above you or below you, or there are instances where a crouch walking 2-speed can come up right behind you and knife you without you having any idea that they were there. They also go into more detail about why this is, and when you read it, you kind of understand why the sound can sometimes be buggy, and after reading this, I can sort of forgive them and give them some leniency because I understand why this is a recurring problem. Basically, they go into detail about how sound in video games is really complicated, and trying to get sound waves to propagate around a 3D environment is already difficult, and it's impressive that Siege is able to do it, subjectively well. However, it gets more difficult when you understand the game engine and how the physics in Siege work. Because Rainbow Six Siege has a destructive environment. Sound propagating is constantly changing since it's destructive. You can put a hole in a wall and that will change the way the sound is emitted throughout the area. And with such a destructible environment where sound propagation is constantly shifting and it's not fixed, like in other games where they have a map that's not destructible, this can cause a problem. As far as what they plan to do to fix these problems, they state that to get sound in Siege to a better place, we have taken multiple actions internally to help diagnose and fix sound issues. First, we have instrumented the sound system to help us catch errors more quickly. This aims to enable us to identify errors earlier in our development process, as well as debug difficult to reproduce problems. Secondly, we have reviewed the status of our sound and propagation systems. We've reached the conclusion that we have to rebuild large parts of it, starting with the way sound is packaged and connected to the game. We are aiming to begin releasing the sound packaging in Season 3, however the full rebuild of the entire sound propagation and sound interaction systems is a major undertaking that will not be finalized in Year 5. So, I can kind of forgive them for sound bugs considering how complicated it is, and especially for a game that has a destructible environment like Siege. I think it's taken them too long to address this, but I'm happy to see that they're taking steps forward into doing something about the sound bugs in this game. The next topic they go over is connectivity, and there's really not much to say in terms of overall connectivity that they speak of, but they basically talk about how they're doing more to improve their servers, all that good jazz. But something I did find interesting in this part of the report is that they addressed latency. They stated that when a player's ping reaches a certain threshold for a sustained period of time, they're kicked from the game. The current kick threshold is considered too lenient by some in the community. They go on to say that our current ping threshold is based off the values observed during the 2015 alpha tests. So that's based off what happened 5 years ago. Connectivity kicks and warning standards for what we deem to be so laggy as to have a negative impact on the game is based on that data. Anything less than a ping of 110 milliseconds is considered acceptable, and for any values over this, additional checks and verifications are applied to the player's actions before triggering a kick to remove the player. and I'm not going to read the rest of it, so I'm just going to summarize it for you, make it easier for everyone. Basically, they want to add more servers in different regions to reduce the amount of latency that is experienced by players. And I think we can all agree that that's great for the game because the difference in 10 milliseconds can change the outcome of a match. However, the problem that they see, and I can understand with having more servers, is that there will be less people in matchmaking and it'll be harder to find a match. For example, I play on Central servers, which is great considering I live in North America in the Midwest. And if I play on the NA East servers or NA West servers, I will have a ping of like 100. And if Ubisoft decided to add a Central South server, like they mentioned in the article, then that basically just divided the Central servers in half. So while there will be more people that playing with lower ping, it will be much harder to find a match. Next, they talk about cheaters and disruptive behavior, and I'll try to run through this because they say a lot, and a lot of it's repetitive and not too groundbreaking, but there is some interesting stuff. They first talk about DDoSers and talk about how they put systems in place to reduce the amount of DDoSing. I think this is a problem that's a bigger issue on console, and I don't play console, so I don't really have an experience with that. But I do remember last fall there was a lot of problems with DDoSers, and they're basically saying now that they have a better grip on this, which is a good thing. They then talk about boosting, and they state that to handle accounts boosted by cheaters, we have a two-step system that includes banning the cheaters and then carrying out an MMR rollback. Banned cheaters will trigger MMR rollbacks, and we can identify with quite high confidence players who received a significant MMR as have been boosted. These boosted players then receive the MMR reset and are required to redo the season's placement matches. Furthermore, to reduce boosting, we have also implemented a limit on the maximum MMR gap allowed between party members. Another step to combat boosting is the upcoming unified MMR change. This allows our matchmaking system to properly identify players based on their worldwide MMR rather than their regional one. Okay, so a few things. I'm glad this is in place, however, I would love to see them be more aggressive with this. I think that if you're in a party with someone who's cheating, your account should be banned because I think you're just as guilty as them. If you're in a party with someone, you should be able to tell whether or not they're cheating. As for the people who solo queue and get with a cheater, that's fine, just roll back their MMR. But I am so happy now they have this system implemented where there's a worldwide MMR rather than just being locked to your region. So you can't have Plat 1s who are in Europe coming to NA servers and playing in golds. Thank you, Ubisoft, for doing something about that. Moving on from boosters, they then go on to talk about smurfing. They say Smurfs create imbalances in matchmaking when they use new accounts to hide their actual skill level. Our matchmaking system does not use clearance level, KD, or win rate to carry out matchmaking. It uses MMR. MMR is determined by your match's outcome while taking into account the enemy team's MMR. By disguising their true skill level, Smurfs impact the competitive balance of the match with very few ways for us to verify the incident. So when it comes to smurfing, it's weird because I don't think it's as cut and dry as what a lot of people think, and you can sometimes be confused for a smurf when you're really not. Like, I don't see a problem with someone having 2 or 3 accounts, and some people just automatically think if you have a second account, then, you're smurf. But if you have like 5 accounts, I kind of see that as a problem because it's very likely that, you're using at least one of those to smurf on. And I like that they're actually addressing this and coming out and saying that they're very against smurfing. However, I think that they could be taking more action to combat it, and they're not doing it. I think that they could hit 2 birds with 1 stone to limit the number of smurfs, as well as hackers do what Call of Duty has done and make it to where you need a phone number to create an account. They could then limit 2 accounts to 1 phone number because I honestly see nothing wrong with having a second account or even a third account. I do it. Most people that do it, they're not doing it to smurf. They may have a main account and another account for solo queuing. And I don't think Ubisoft sees that as a problem either. But you could have a phone number linked to 2 or 3 accounts if Ubi thinks that's okay. And look at the difference between the accounts. If one account has a KD of 1.75 and the other one has a KD of 0.70, that's a problem. And it's a good way to tell who is smurfing. So I think overall they need to be more aggressive when it comes to comeback smurfing. But nonetheless, I do like that they're looking for ways to combat it and not just letting it happen. Moving forward, they talk about incomplete teams, and they state that games that begin with an unequal number of players are extremely frustrating, and this kind of a disadvantage goes against our goal of fair, balanced, and enjoyable games. While the ranked playlist does allow players to rejoin the games they were in, we do realize that rejoining does not always occur. And it's taken them way too long to do this, but now if you're getting to a match and it's a 4v5, you can cancel it without penalty, and that's amazing, and it took them way too long to get here. But I think what they need to do is take it one step further and limit the amount of MMR lost whenever a teammate disconnects during the middle of a game. I feel like I shouldn't be punished because we went into overtime and my teammate decided to dip. I should definitely lose MMR if we go on to lose the match, but I shouldn't lose as much as if I had a complete squad with me. But overall, I see this as a huge step in the right direction. They then mention vote to kick, and basically they talk about how they realize that it's often abused for griefing, and they state that to fix this, they're looking at not allowing some players who may have a lot of reports filed against them for griefing, and not letting those specific players be able to vote to kick. So, not a huge change, but that is great news for those who like to play casual. They then talk about MMR rollbacks and basically say that they know it sucks when you log in and you lose MMR because you had a cheater on your team. And what I got from it is basically they're trying to find ways to make it suck less. That's just what I got from it. This part of the port was very confusing to me. I read it like 10 times and still didn't fully understand it. So if you're interested in it, I suggest that you go ahead and read it. Again, it's a link for it down below in the description. And lastly, they are adding a streamer mode. And they state that we have an early iteration of a potential solution which we discussed with a select few streamers. While the initial reception was positive, we need to make sure that this feature is as bulletproof as possible, security-wise, to ensure that no workarounds affect anonymity, and I don't know that word, while still allowing us to trace our players and player data when a different identity is used. We are continuing to iterate on the design and validating it to see if we can break down this feature into more intermediate deliverables. Is that even? I didn't think that was a word. We are committed to providing tools where content creators can communicate with their community and express their passions safely. At the time, we will continue to take feedback to ensure that our system is robust and aligned with our players' expectations. And as a content creator, I'm glad that they're looking into adding this. I feel like this is something that should have come a long time ago. I have a Twitch account, but my internet's so bad that I don't even bother to stream anymore. But later on down the line, when I do decide to start streaming, that'll be a nice feature to have. Okay, that disruptive behavior section was huge, but luckily the report is almost over with. Next is accessibility, and they state that there's a colorblind mode coming to R6, and all I can say is shame on Ubisoft for not having this at launch, and it's a shame on them for taking 5 years to address this problem. This isn't something that everyone deals with, but every game has a colorblind mode, and this is a huge disservice to those who have colorblindness. And fun fact for those of you who didn't know this, not having a colorblind mode actually resulted in the first Caveira interrogation at a grand final. Pengu talked about this in his 2-hour Save Siege video that I think most of the community has seen, but basically his teammate Eunice is colorblind and he cannot see the color red. So when they were defending the basement on bank and the attackers put a claymore on the main stairs to protect themselves as they tried to get the open air hatches open, Eunice could not see the claymore because he can't see the red lines because he's colorblind. But he goes up the stairs anyway and just barely misses the sensor. Like, if he would have seen it, he may not even tried to get past it, or he definitely would have thrown his impact at it. But he didn't see it, and he went up anyway, didn't get hit by the claymore, luckily. He went to open area, killed Zofia, and got the Intero on Capital. But when his teammate Fabian went up there to help him as he was taking out Zofia and Capital, Fabian hit the claymore. Eunice couldn't take it out because he didn't see it. So this is something that actually affects something like the R6 Grand Finals. So shame on Ubisoft for taking this long, but I guess it's better late than never. Next, they discuss the smoke propagation problems where smoke can clip through a wall, and you could even, in some instances, die to a smoke canister from the other side of a wall. As for how they plan to fix it, they tell us that we have tried a few smaller fixes and workarounds on the system, but the results were unsatisfactory. We have concluded that we will need to overhaul the smoke propagation system, which will involve sizable rework to the graphics and engine side to ensure good visual quality while maintaining a solid frame rate. This is currently on hold until we have time and resources to address it. We will communicate further when we have more to share. So basically they're saying that they plan on doing something, but it's going to be a while. And lastly, they talk drones, and they don't really go into any detail. Basically that they know drones are bugged, and whether it be a drone falling through the map, or not being able to hear on your drone, or like the other day when my drone went into a mute jammer and for the next 2 rounds, all I could hear was the sound of a mute jammer. And again, they don't do anything specific. They just state that they know that these problems exist and they will address these cases as they come. So again, pretty lazy. They're just saying that we know it exists, but we're not going to do anything about it at the moment because we don't know what to do. And so that's about it for the status report. I love that they're actually addressing these problems like sound bugs and let us know about the possibility of more servers, which I can imagine a lot of people internationally will be very excited about. Some of this was kind of lazy and they didn't really give us much. Like some parts basically stated that we know some of these problems exist, but we're not going to do anything about it. But I guess it's nice to know that they see the problems that we see and we're not just, yelling into the dark. So overall, I love that Ubisoft is being transparent with us, and there are a lot of problems in Siege, so it's nice to see that they are aware that these problems exist, and I honestly believe that we're going to be seeing some overalls in the next year, considering that they're devoting more resources to fixing Siege rather than adding more operators to the roster or more content. I honestly love that they've made that decision. I honestly think that it would be better if they just had an Operation Health 2 where they didn't add any new content and spent all the resources trying to fix the game. That's something I feel the game really needs right now, and while there wouldn't be a lot of newer players coming in if that happened, it would make the game a whole lot better in the long run. So that's about it for this video. Let me know what you think. Do you think Siege is actually going to fix some of the problems outlined in this status report? Or is this just a way to get us to shut up and stop complaining about how broken the game can be? Let me know down below. Anyways, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video, and if you enjoyed it, leave a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon, that way you can be notified every time I post a video. I'm the Senator, and as always, have a good one.